Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask Geoff and Lauren. We're here to answer your questions about the double bass. And Lauren, this question's from Michael Herman, who I got to hang out with in Prague this year. Michael,
Nice.
we had a really good time. We went and tried some really nice Czech beer. We had some seriously cool Czech food, and he's an all-round top guy. And he's actually left a
Very
question for
cool.
us as well. So his question is this: he's asking about drones and practicing with the drone. What
hmm
do you recommend doing if you're practicing? Would you use just like the tonic, or would you use a different scale degree? So if you were practicing a G major scale, would you just have the G in the
hmm
background as a reference pitch, or would you maybe have a B or a D or an F or something, or an F sharp, depending on the type of scale that you're applying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, how do you go
I
about it? And do you practice with drones? And how would you go about it?
yeah, I practice with drones all the time. I
Okay,
practice with a tuner and a drone and a metronome at all times. Well, not
really?
at all times, but
Yeah.
most of the time I've at least got a tuner and a metronome on. And
Okay.
a drone is so great for your intonation because when you're practicing it with, let's just say, scales in the morning, if you
Yeah.
warm up with scales like I do, I will put the drone on the tonic note. So, like you
Mm,
said, in G major, I'll put the drone on G.
mm,
And the reason that it's helpful is because you're not only working on your intonation in terms of, in that very second, what does my B sound like against this drone, which
mm,
is not lying to me, like it's not
mm,
incorrect. And then you're also training your ear to recognize what every single interval sounds like
mm.
as well. So when I first started doing this, I had a really difficult time with those weird intervals like major seconds, major sevenths. Those were just really weird for me. And so I always just thought I was out of tune.
Mm,
But you learn that that actually is, an interval. It's not just dissonant. It's an
mm,
interval that you can actually measure and you know when you're out of tune or not. So to answer that part of your question, I do always do the tonic note. To
mm,
be honest, I've never done like the third or the fifth. Um, I have done fifths, like an interval of the fifth, so
mm,
G and D together. I've done that
mm,
before, and that works great too. But generally, I just stick with the tonic note. And then if you're practicing a piece of music
mm,
where the the tonal center is constantly changing, then I just split it up into different sections and say I'm going to work on this G major section now, and then I'm going to work on this, just say, C sharp major section. That'd be really
mm.
weird, right? To
Yeah, well,
modulate that
yeah.
way, um, but then work on it with the drone on the correct tonal center pitch, because otherwise there's it's not going to do any good.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how I practice with drones. They're very effective.
Yeah, I've kind of used them in the past as well. I mean, I think the obvious thing is if you're practicing scales and arpeggios, then having it on the root note will allow you to play the intervals within the chord more accurately, because the note B will sound different within the context of it being acting as a major third compared to
Right.
a minor third, for example. So
Right.
if it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, to set the drone on the note B if you're practicing a G major scale. I mean, you
hmm
frankly you could do, and it would be fine, and you'd learn something from it, I'm sure. But I think Lauren's advice is sound. I've also I've also found that when I'm practicing, that sometimes I'll work on particular phrases and figures and things, and it won't be actually, I'll just leave one note on C or something, and
hmm
everything will still work in relation to that. And sometimes that can be quite interesting to hear.
hmm
You might be
hmm
practicing a particular passage, and the C will change, but as long as you're kind of
Right.
aware of how that's working. So
hmm
say if all of a sudden you move to a different, you move to D flat, then it's suddenly acting as the seventh, and
Right.
that can
Right.
be kind of interesting, I think, when you're learning pieces.
Yeah.
But generally,
And
I've been more conservative and
right.
pretty much done what Lauren has done.
Right. Well, and along those same lines,
Mm,
if you're practicing something and you realize, okay, this note is always out of tune, whether it's the
yeah,
tonal center or not,
sure.
I'll put the drone on that. And one of the examples that I use in the new bowing course
Mm,
actually is Brahms one. there's a really common excerpt from Brahms 1, Movement 1, where it goes E flat, G flat, E flat, and it kind of moves around from there. And every time I play that low E flat, it's just not right. And so I'll commonly practice it with the note on the problem note. And in that case, I believe that is the tonal center. So
yeah, that is a really cool way of working with it. And we've also been asked in a previous episode of Ask Geoff and Lauren about working with the drone in different octaves. And generally I'll have it in a sort of a lower register. And to me that always works, but it wouldn't bother me if it was an octave higher. Probably I wouldn't have it higher than what I was practicing, but generally I just have the low, the low note, and then I just work from there. Is that pretty much what you do? You don't mix the octaves up for different practice?
Generally, I just put it on a note, and then if I find that it's weird, I'll try a lower octave and then just see if that helps.
That's good advice. Yeah, absolutely.
The most important thing is that you know what the tonal center is and you can hear it properly. So don't worry about the actual right way to do the octaves and everything. Just do what you can hear best, I think.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do a shameless plug for my scales course, which has a bunch of drones in all 12 keys. So if you are looking to get some drones to practice double bass on, I created these just for you, and I'll provide a link for that underneath. Michael, thanks for your question. Lauren, thanks for joining me, and thanks for watching, everyone at home. We'll see you next time.